Cherry.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Vanguard. The cat literally just threw up on the ground like 1 foot away from me, so got to deal with that now. But welcome back to the show. How you doing, Zach?
What's up, everybody? It's the cat vomit guard, and I'm gonna handle this I'll hold down the fort while Gavin's off taking care of that really quickly. But excited to be back on the mic with all of you guys. We'll do our official Patreon shout out when Gavin gets back, and we can put the graphics on the screen and whatever, because I'm not gonna run over by the cat vomit to the board where that all is controlled. But anyways, yeah, what's up, everybody? Good to see some people are trickling into the chat. Going back in time, spinning the wheel back to really what's probably responsible for any kind of initial rise that the Vanguard might have had. We really rode the fuck out of the force the wave algorithm boost that the left was getting, because it cracked into the regular algorithm. You could talk about it. You could get new people to click on your videos for the first time while you were discussing this like really niche kind of strategic decision, right? And obviously, here at the Vanguard, our patented formula of mixing the beef with the policy so we get the clicks. Force the vote was the perfect storm for us, and it really did propel us into actually having an audience, right? We'd had some little bumps of success along the way, but Force the Vote, the Noam Chomsky clip, that was really big stuff for us. Gavin doing his performance art, guzzling that Coca-Cola in the infamous clip. But anyway, lots of that to discuss. Gavin is back from picking up the vomit. Go Niners. I'll be at the game this weekend. Well, I hope you have fun at the game. I guess, Mike H, do you live out in San Francisco? Is the game in San Francisco? Let us know in the chat, Mike. But yeah, I hope you have a good time.
Absolutely. And sorry about that, guys. Yeah, Cherry threw up like literally seconds before, or after rather, we went live, so I had to deal with that. Cherry. But we're here. We're back once again. Really excited to break down today's topics. Going to be a great live stream. Appreciate everyone that's already in the chat already. Make sure to hit that like button, everyone, if you're just now tuning in. It's a great way to support the show, and it gets some more eyeballs and comrades in the chat. So really appreciate if everyone hits that like button before we get started. And thank you so much, Mike H, for the $2. Really appreciate that. First super chat of the live stream. Always an honor. So thank you so much, man. And last time my cat was puking, the vet charged me $800. Jesus Christ.
Vet bills are no joke, dude. I just had to take my dog in to get stitches and do all of that kind of stuff because he got hurt. And yeah, that shit, that the price adds up real fast at the vet. Let me tell you that much.
Exactly. And this is a nice comment. Thank you, Daniel. Nothing like breaking the hump day drudgery with the Vanguard and comrades. Hell yeah, I feel the same way. Daniel, you guys really brighten our days too. Make life more worth living, getting together, talking some politics with you guys. Always appreciate hearing what you have to say in the chat. So thanks so much, Daniel. You're a valued member of the Vanguard community. Thanks everyone for tuning in so far. Again, I'll remind you all to please hit that like button if you haven't already. And before we get started, a huge shout out to the patron community. As always, we do like to start our show with a big old shout out to the patrons for making the show possible. The link is in the description if you're a fan of our content and would like to help support what we do here and see more documentaries and on the road stuff like that. The support really goes a long way. Even just a couple bucks a month really makes a difference. So thank you so much to our patrons. Really appreciate that. As I said, the link's going to be in the description. As always, if you're interested in having your own name up here on the shout out screen, plus access to our Discord community and other perks, hit up that link in the description. Like I said, great way to support the show. However, if you're not able to support the show financially, obviously that makes total sense. We completely understand. All we ask is that you hit that like button. It's 100% free and a great way to support the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate everybody. We love you, and you keep the wheels on our van going round and round and round. And shout out to you, Mike H. The game is in Santa Clara, so that's, I think, by San Jose. Makes sense, a little south of San Francisco. You live 4 hours from there. Yeah, that's a coveted part of the country to live in. I bet you it's based where you are. A lot of gorgeous scenery over in Northern California.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you once again for the super chat. Really appreciate that, and hope you enjoy the game. Not obviously, we're Chiefs fans living in Kansas City, but go Niners, I guess. For your sake, Mike. Thanks so much for the super chat once again. And do you just want to jump right into the main topic for today. I think, we got one more from Alex. We're about to get into our main story. Jimmy Dore, Sam Seder, Briahna Joy Gray, etc. Before we do, huge shout out to you, Alex. Thank you so much for the $4.99. I showed my conservative mom the Greenwald interview, and she really enjoyed it. Wow. Thank you so much, Alex. That's awesome. I'm interested in which one you showed her, because I think we've done 3 now with Glenn, actually. And the last one we did was more of like a debate than an interview. Honestly, we really debated some of our differences of opinions. And I thought it was really interesting and productive exchange. So if it's that one you're talking about, that's especially interesting. Again, it's because we got into some arguments and discussions like that in that conversation. But all 3 interviews we did with Glenn, I really enjoyed the conversations.
Yeah, love chatting with Glenn. Always a great conversation. And yeah, I guess it has been 3 times now. He's a damn regular on our show, if you can believe it. But yeah, shout out to you, Alex, and glad your mom likes our show.
Yeah, it's awesome. Hopefully, she appreciated our perspective, even if she disagreed with us. That's always good to hear. But yeah, let's take a look at what's popping off on the old tweeter. Hey, Christina, thank you so much, Christina, for the $9.99. This one's for you, Zach.
Yeah, the T-Guard. Zach, do you follow college football? Not really, Christina, and here's why. When I went to college, I went to my first stop was in Chicago at an art school where there was no football team. My second stop was at a city-based college in Kansas City, UMKC, where Gavin also went. No football team there either. They had like a Division II, was it D2 or D3 basketball team? I don't remember the ruse. Never really followed it much while I was there. And then ever since then, it's just kind of like I'm homeless when it comes to college football. So I'll gamble on college football every once in a while. I got a buddy I work with that's like a diehard Mizzou fan. And I grew up watching a lot of Kansas basketball just because that's where we grew up. Like I remember the 08 championship being like really a big deal. The Mario Chalmers shot, watched that all live, watched that whole season, basically every game. But I don't follow college football like that, mostly because I think when I was growing up also KU sucked so bad, which was the team that everybody where I grew up kind of cheered for. And, we won the Orange Bowl in 2008. And ever since then, it was just like one of the most fucking just lackluster football programs, just downright despicable football programs. Playing really well this year from what I understand, but, just don't follow it like that. But shout out to you, Christina.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christina. Really appreciate the donation and comment as always. But yeah, let's get into the muck. Let's dive right into the gutter. So like I said this morning, pretty much immediately after waking up, I usually check my Twitter, which is a terrible habit, by the way. Do not recommend. But sadly, that is my bad habit. I wake up and I look at the Twitter like it's the freaking morning newspaper, right? What's going on in the world of online leftist politics today? Well, I saw this and it obviously perked my attention. Briahna Joy Gray talking a little bit about Sam Seder and directly responding actually to this thread about a recent clip that was featured on the Majority Report. Here's Compton J saying Emma and Sam lack self-awareness. Everything in this video applies to them. You thinking you're hearing different opinions and all the stuff. I see they tagged Jimmy Dore, got pretty interested. Jimmy, talking more about Jimmy and Tulsi and all this stuff. So that basically breaking down this Majority Report clip from the other day. So I went and checked that out. And I figure before we circle back to this thread, we're about to come back to this thread and discuss Briahna's response to this all. Let's actually take a look at the Majority Report clip itself, because this is a pretty interesting conversation. So let's react to this, and then we can break it down and react to what Briahna Joy Gray also added to this conversation. But anyway, yeah, let's just take this from the top and hear what Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland had to say about Jimmy Dore's toxic ecosystem. Again, let's watch this and break it down.
About another fan favorite, Jimmy Dore. Now, I know you guys probably talked about Tulsi earlier, and if you didn't or did, my bad, I'm a little late catching the show. But the other day, some old clips were popping up on my feed of Jimmy talking about Tulsi, et cetera, and then just kind of seeing like this whole little Jimmy Dore sphere and their world around them kind of like crystallize, and seeing how this is turning out has just been fascinating. And I will admit that I kind of got to know a lot of this independent, quote, independent creator space, maybe around like Force the Vote time. And I was more of like a researcher, but I ended up meeting a lot of the people like in that sphere. I never met Jimmy or anything like that. But just, it was interesting to kind of learn like completely.
And by the way, this is just some caller, obviously on the Majority Report, they take calls at the end of every episode. So I'm not sure who this is. I'd be interested to know exactly who this is. But I don't think she identifies herself in this clip. Also, shout out to you, Alex. Majority Report is nothing without Michael Brooks. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I was a much bigger fan of the Majority Report back in the Michael Brooks era, and I also really enjoyed Jamie Peck's commentary on there as well, being a communist and bringing that perspective to the show. I think it suffered a lot without their presence.
Yeah, I mean, nothing but like a lot of love for Michael Brooks. I mean, that was a loss that was felt all over the left community.
Absolutely, but thank you so much, Alex. Really appreciate that.
Really clueless about like who these people are and how they operate. Seeing how this is turning out has just been fascinating. And I will admit that I kind of got to know a lot of this independent, quote, independent creator space, maybe around like Force the Vote time. And I was more of like a researcher, but I ended up meeting a lot of the people like in that sphere. I never met Jimmy or anything like that. But just, it was interesting to kind of learn, like completely clueless about like who these people are and how they operate, and really just seeing like what has come of it. I mean, I criticized JD back when, that whole thing with Anna happened. So I was like completely ostracized from that crowd since. I was even told like, if you criticize him, it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you. So I kind of realized like I needed to exit. But my long-winded story short.
All right, because I have a feeling I'm going to disagree with the Majority Report later on, and maybe even this lady that's calling in. I don't know. I haven't actually heard this clip before. I'm coming at it with raw ears. But I just want to harp on that analysis that she's making. So it's like, it's pretty clear in the Jimmy Dore community. It's like, hey, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Like, that is such a telling thing to just have that be like the out loud part. And it's something that everybody knows. I mean, there really is no hiding it. Like, don't criticize him for anything. Otherwise, you're going to get like fucking shunned. It's a very like mob mentality kind of a deal. I just thought that was funny that we're like a minute and 15 seconds into this video, and that's already like been this person's experience. I don't know.
Oh yeah. Well, if anyone's watching that doesn't remember, from a couple years ago, Zach and I can really relate to what this caller is saying, because we also were part of the Jimmy Dore sphere, quote unquote, back during the era of Force the Vote. And the reason why is because we really passionately agreed with Jimmy Dore about Force the Vote. We thought it was a great idea. We were, devastated that the squad members just ignored it. We were angry about the fact that they ignored this demand that was coming from a lot of the, leftist independent media figures that kind of helped get them elected in the first place. And now it just felt like, oh, well, now we've made it, and you guys, we don't care about your opinion anymore. So even though you're asking us to force the vote and try to get these concessions and try to force a, Medicare for all floor vote, and we don't care, we're going to save our political capital for later, which they didn't, because they never forced the vote on anything. They didn't, try to get $15 an hour minimum wage like AOC alluded to at the time. They didn't do anything. It was completely disappointing, at least to Zach and I. And again, we happened to be totally on Jimmy's side at that time. We made a lot of videos calling out not only AOC and the squad, but other commentators for their, kind of weak commentary on Force the Vote, Sam Seder included. And we thought it was, pretty unacceptable that a lot of people were making up these straw mans and just kind of misinforming their audiences about the nature of Force the Vote and about the potential outcomes of Force the Vote, like, Sam Seder did. So again, we were definitely part of the Jimmy Dore sphere, as this caller says. We were 100% in that group. Jimmy liked our content. He personally DM'd us and said, hey, I like your guys' show. Can I, come on your show? And, all this stuff, right? He was a friend of the show for a while. And then, a little bit more time went by, a couple more months went by, separating us from Force the Vote. And, we started to disagree with Jimmy a little bit less on a few issues. And just like how we disagree with everyone on the show, we, talked about it on our platform. Again, we always talk about our disagreements with various commentators, whether it's Kyle Kalinske or, Briahna Joy Gray or Sam Seder or Jimmy Dore. And we never thought that would be an issue, right? We always figured like, okay, well, obviously we agreed with him on Force the Vote. He's a friend of the show, but no one's going to care if we voice our disagreement, right? Like, of course they want us to be honest about this stuff. Well, that was not the experience that we had. And basically exactly what we were told was, why are you biting the hand that is feeding you? That is direct quotes from our comments at the time. I remember people on Twitter saying that. I specifically remember Jimmy and his wife, Steph, liking tweets on Twitter that said, why are these guys biting the hands that feed them? Why are they criticizing Jimmy when he's helped them so much? Jimmy did so much. these guys owe their entire career success to Jimmy Dore. Why are they now criticizing him? All of this crap. And I just remember being stunned because I was like, you really want me to keep my mouth shut about something that I feel honestly? And I shouldn't express myself about this one commentator, even though I do express myself constantly about all these other commentators and where I disagree with them. But somehow Jimmy Dore's off limits because he's helped us out in our careers and he's, come on our show once or twice. Like, that never made sense to me. And obviously that didn't stop us from criticizing Jimmy Dore, but we lost hundreds and hundreds of subscribers at the time. We received so much hate. And the reason why what this caller is correctly identifying is that, yeah, if you're part of the Jimmy Dore sphere, you're not allowed to criticize Jimmy Dore. And you'll notice this with a lot of other channels that are currently still in the Jimmy Dore sphere. They'll savagely, viciously attack anyone and everyone else on left YouTube. But you won't hear much about criticisms of Jimmy Dore. It's not that they don't disagree with him. It's just that they keep their mouths shut when they do disagree with him because they don't want to see that sort of backlash. And they don't want to hear stuff about, why are you biting the hand that feeds you from 100,000 angry, people on Twitter.
Everyone's a PMC grifter except for $1 Million House Jimmy Dore, right? Everybody else is PMC. Fuck any journalist, anybody that has air conditioning, except for Jimmy Dore's air conditioning, because he's a real freedom fighter. Like, oh, okay, guy, like I see what you're doing here. And it's so obvious because, yeah, I mean, and the reach goes deeper than that, right? I mean, we dared to talk to the DC bureau chief of The Intercept, and you're gonna try personally DMing me to intimidate me about what I'm supposed to fucking ask this guy as you get up on stage every single day and bemoan access journalism. It's so laughable. And so, I wanted to point this out because this kind of bad behavior, it really feeds into the arguments that people with Emma and Sam's perspective and how they approach a guy like Jimmy Dore, right? Because as he's talking, one way so viciously, he's kind of employing a lot of those tactics himself to his own benefit. And basically doing the same media mafiosoism that the mainstream legacy media outlets do. It's like, oh, do you want to rise in your career? Shut the fuck up about this. And then to have the gall, as you mentioned, to go out and just be so open about it. It's just like, yeah, people used to tell me, oh, Zach's rants, they're so legendary. He's the next Jimmy Dore. And then the second you start bitching about Jimmy Dore, it's like, this guy's a shill. He's a fucking but it's so like they will turn on a dime. And that is how you're dealing with sycophantism.
Absolutely. And again, whatever you think about Jimmy Dore, I still agree with some of what Jimmy says. And, whatever you think of Sam Seder, I disagree with a lot of what Sam Seder says. That doesn't make it any less true what this caller is pointing out. And again, that's why you will see the channels that are kind of in the Jimmy Dore sphere. You're never going to see them criticize the guy, like a show like Hardlands Media or something. You're never going to fucking see them criticize Jimmy. And it's pretty funny why. I mean, I think it's pretty clear why. Again, you see what happens to people that do. Look what happened to Graham Elwood. He was Jimmy Dore's literal fucking co-host and good friend for fucking years and years. Had one disagreement, excommunicated, totally ostracized.
Nick Briahna it's the same thing. He's completely under Jimmy's wing because without Jimmy, he has nothing. He just has Jimmy's brigade of sympathetic foot soldiers.
Yep. So again, this caller, her analysis is 100% true. And you can love Jimmy Dore. That's fine. Again, I still do agree with a lot of Jimmy Dore's analysis on certain specific topics, but you can't deny that this Jimmy Dore sphere thing is correct. And that if you do criticize him, you will 100% be dogpiled and you'll hear, why are you biting the hand that feeds you? Which is ridiculous, again, because our whole job is to state our opinion. Our whole job is to come out here and be honest about where we disagree with people. And I don't know what the hell the point of watching our show would be if you guys knew we were intentionally keeping our mouths shut about someone or something because we didn't want to burn a bridge or cost ourselves a professional relationship. That is access journalism. That literally is access journalism. And we don't fuck with that here at the Vanguard.
Yeah. And just to cherry on top of that, juxtapose that with the behavior of two other very, politically they're different guys. But just think about how Glenn comes on our show, even though obviously we've markedly disagreed with him. Glenn's like, oh, well, let's have some discourse about that because I actually believe in conversation and pushback. And, I want to iron out what you actually believe and what I actually believe. And this is, compelling for the both of us. Right. Same with Kyle the other day. We were like doing a segment where we talked about where we agreed and disagreed with Kyle in a way that sometimes it got a little critical. Yeah, guess what? Kyle's going to come on and we're going to talk about our agreements and our disagreements face to face. It's not that deep if you actually are just down to have a real honest conversation with somebody. But that never happens. Like, when was the last time you saw Jimmy honestly go on and like fucking debate somebody, on their show? And yet people will constantly call you a coward if you don't, if you're from the gym. Anyway, it's very funny.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you so much, Brian, for the $4.99. Jimmy is a complex character. I wish he would reconcile with TYT and Kyle. The left would be better off for it. I mean, I totally agree, man. I totally agree. It really sucks to see how much fracturing has happened. And, despite the fact that we've covered it and, made a lot of videos about this sort of fracturing, it doesn't make it any less kind of sad that it has happened, especially with Kyle, because I really do think, Kyle really tried genuinely to express his opinion on the whole Anna Kasparian drama that went down. And it's just unfortunate the way that all had to go down, because at one point, I mean, I still remember vividly back in like 2016, 2015, when everyone was so tight knit and it seemed like a real community of online leftist commentators working together towards a shared goal. And it's just become so fractured since then. So it is unfortunate. And I totally agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, or at least Jimmy and Kyle. I don't really care so much about TYT. I don't know. I never have really had much respect for that. Obviously, it would be better for the left. I totally agree with you, Brian. But I just think that even if we could all just get to the point where we could discuss our ideas and not be like super, like, I don't care about debate. I love debate. I like, talking about our differences and all of that kind of shit. I don't even care if it gets like, maybe like 10 or 15% petty, but let's just not make it like 85% petty. If we could actually like, okay, scream at each other a little bit, blow some steam off, that's fine. But like, as long as we're still able to like sit down and discuss the issues, I think that would be way more beneficial. Like, how badly would it just like explode the internet if Kyle and Jimmy just sat down and like were able to just like debate like where their differences are politically? That would be a really interesting thing to watch. I would hope that would happen. I would volunteer to moderate that with Gavin in a heartbeat. But anyway.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate the contribution. Thank you also, Hysteric Raider, for the $2. Speaking of Hardlands, future debate idea. I mean, I don't think they've ever like proposed a debate or anything. I don't really know what we would debate them on. But I guess maybe. Anyway, thank you so much, Hysteric Reader.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm with Gavin. I'm like, what are we going to debate them on? And be like, you guys cuddle up to Jimmy Dore. And they're like, no, we don't. We just happen to agree with him on fucking everything. It's like, all right, well then what the hell? I'll just debate Jimmy instead. I'm not
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hysteric Raider. And thank you also, Alex, for the $1.99. TYT and Dore are crybabies. Yeah, they're both completely narcissistic. Again, regardless of whether or not you agree with their commentary, they're two sides of the same narcissistic coin. And I think that the way they treated Kyle Kulinski after all that Anna Kasparian drama went down is proof of that, right? Because Cenk literally co-founded Justice Democrats with Kyle Kulinski, and Kyle quit Justice Democrats in solidarity with Cenk Uygur when they ousted Cenk for his old problematic blog post. These guys were, very close. But as soon as Kyle just ever so slightly criticized Anna Kasparian, he was completely excommunicated and completely ostracized from the TYT clique. And the same thing goes with the Jimmy Dore clique after he, ever so slightly disagreed with Jimmy Dore at the time because he tried to give a more nuanced take on the whole situation. He also got completely ostracized and completely excommunicated from the Jimmy Dore clique. So yeah, Jimmy and Cenk are very much so two sides of the same narcissistic coin. That doesn't mean you have to disagree with their commentary. You can think they're 100% right about everything, but I think it's pretty undeniable that they both, display those qualities.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the byproduct or I guess the necessary evil of succeeding in this kind of a space if your goal, and this is why Gavin and I never say this. We actually, take pride in our debate and nuance and the fact that Gavin and I will sometimes see things differently, and like, that's okay. We're both still leftists and we want what's best for the world. But what they put forward, both the Jimmy Dore show and the TYT model, is the same in the sense where it's like, this is the truth. What we're telling you is the truth, and nobody else is giving you the truth. And our take is the take. And if it's not our take, it's because it's corporate, or it's it's a psyop or whatever. This is the only truth that you can get. I am the universal truth teller, right? And so what that does is that makes you into like a monolithic kind of a guy. And anything that contradicts you. I mean, and to be fair, Vosh does this too. Anything that contradicts you, you have to rain fucking shitstorm down, right? You have to, bring it down and tear it down and destroy it, because your line, your, dictum is what it is. So anybody else is violating that, and you have all your foot soldiers that think you're the one truth teller, that go out and like a mob tell everybody that, like, you're CIA, or like you're just a Republican, or whatever, right? And I think that that's just what you're naturally going to see from these like figurehead, like, kind of like talking guys, which is essentially what Gavin and I are. We just try not to be so fucking rigid and, one dimensional.
Yeah, exactly. If one of our friends of the show, like, disagrees with us or call us out, you don't see us come on here and be like, you're a fucking sellout to this establishment. You're a fucking psyop. You're a FBI, CIA, a Russian bot. We don't do that shit because it's fucking weak and lame. But thank you so much, Alex. And thank you so much, Christina, for the $4.99. Jimmy and Jordan also don't speak anymore, which is disappointing as well. I like both of them. I think you mean they don't speak anymore. And that's also super disappointing. Yeah, because I remember back when Jordan was a fixture of the Jimmy Dore show. Yeah, real bummer. Thank you so much, Christina.
Yeah. I don't know how much there's love left between Jordan and Jimmy to reconcile. But I think it's always good to, have, a network and it does show the erosion of the leftist space that we once knew, right? When you think about how all of these guys, all of the powerhouses besides Crystal and Sagar, basically were born either like under TYT or became TYT adjacent. Because Kyle, huge TYT affiliate back in the day, Jimmy obviously on the show, Jordan Cheriton on the show. This all goes back to these, same people, but. Yeah, I mean, it's just the erosion of the left and how a lot of people have decided to, chase one route where others have decided to chase another.
Absolutely. But yeah, it is disappointing. I agree with that. And thank you also, Brian, once again. Oh, I think we already reacted to this one. I think Jake and Jimmy wish they could reconcile. I don't know about if they wish they could. I don't think there's going to be any reconciliation between Jimmy and Jake, unfortunately. I don't think that's even a remote possibility after the Anna Kasparian allegations. I don't think there's any coming back for that, man. But I wish they would too.
Yeah, I think also it's just such a cash cow for them, man. Brian, look at Jimmy's most watched videos over the past 5 years, and I guarantee you a good number of them that aren't anti-vax and fucking crazy pills are about Cenk Uygur and TYT and all that drama. I remember when that feud was really bad. Jimmy's numbers were just going fucking bonkers. People loved clicking on that shit for him. And I think that I imagine the same shit was true for TYT when they were dogpiling on Jimmy. They were getting their clicks up because that was exciting for people to watch. They wanted to watch a Cenk and Anna rant about Jimmy, just like how people like to watch Jimmy rant about Cenk and Anna. So I think it actually... part of the reason why it furthered their feud, it deepened their feud, was because they were incentivized to go out in front of their audience and just be vitriolic and fucking pissed off and show how mad and confident they were. Again, it's that same two sides of the same coin. They had to go out there and both of them were, trying to posture, and it made them a lot of money. So yeah, I don't think there's any going back from that.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to the rest of these super chats in a second, guys. Let's watch a bit more of this video though. And then we'll get to the rest of the super chats. So keep them coming, guys.
Sure, is that I really appreciate the show and the analysis. And if anything, I'm just angry I was way late to kind of understanding this realm. So thank you. I
don't know if you've ever seen the exchange I had with Jimmy in 2016. I did. Keep threatening to recut that too, because one of the things that's unclear when you watch it is that I had invited Jimmy on. I had emailed him the night before, and I said, "Look, I'm going to take some issue with," and that was the show that he had, basically said that Peter Thiel, what difference does it make if he's on the Supreme Court?
Right.
And I'd emailed him, and he said, "No, I can't make it. Go to town." And apparently he was listening from his car to the show. And when he heard me start to talk about him, he called in. And maybe we got to recut that so that we can sort of examine that. But I'm interested in what you said about the hand that feeds you, because this is, this, and I don't know, I don't want to get, I do a little bit of navel gazing on the show, but I one of the things that I am not good at doing, both dispositionally, but also, I probably adopted as a principle just to justify my antisocial behavior. But I don't do much of the reciprocal guesting on shows thing.
Right.
I've never, ever been terribly comfortable doing it. And to the extent that I have always been like very careful to make sure that I'm not doing it, I probably have gone too far in the other direction in some respects. And it is the way that shows grow. You can see this on the right. You had a period of time when all of these IDW people, it would just be a sort of like revolving circle jerk. Ben Shapiro would show up on Rubin's show. Rubin would show up on Shapiro's show. The Weinstein brothers would show up on Rubin's show. He would show up on their show. Sam Harris would go on their show, et cetera, et cetera. You'd see it on the, in the more like Daily Wire stuff, they'd all get together. And what would happen is the reason why this builds an audience is because you as an audience member, you keep circling around. And not only that, you think that you're hearing different opinions, but they are all basically an extension of each other. And they're just basically, they're almost like confirming each other's bias and confirming it for an audience member.
Now, I will break in here and say that, well, Sam Seder is 100% correct about this, and the fact that Jimmy Dore does this and a lot of other channels do this successfully. What I will say is that, and despite the fact that Sam Seder doesn't do this to the same extent, I will say it's not like the Majority Report isn't an echo chamber too. It's not like they have on people on the Majority Report to debate and to discuss opinions that are radically outside of the perspective that's traditionally shared by Sam Seder and Emma Vigeland. So even if they don't do the whole kind of reciprocal guesting, it's not like you're going to get a broad spectrum of diverse opinions on the Majority Report. Most of the people on there agree with Sam. That's why they're invited on there. So it's kind of an echo chamber over there as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. I think that circle jerk is the right word for it, though. And I saw a couple of people asking who he's talking about when he says the IDW. He's talking about the intellectual dark web. That is kind of a throwback now. I remember Michael Brooks used to joke about how he finally got around to writing a book about the intellectual dark web right as they stopped being relevant, which was a few years ago. People should still check out his book on it. That was just a joke he used to make about how thankfully they're not as fucking relevant anymore. But yeah, it was back when the Sam Harris, the Weinsteins, the Ben Shapiros, all of that stuff. Like, oh, I was canceled at Evergreen State or whatever the fuck that campus was.
But I'm curious about the hand that feeds you, because there is also an awareness, and you see it a lot in this like sort of YouTube culture, that like, I'm not going to express something because I can't afford to burn this bridge on a social level, because it's really a business relationship. And so you see it amongst those people. All those force the vote people were just having each other on each other's shows as a way of sort of like creating that same dynamic. And, I don't know that I went on anybody's show ever to talk about force the vote. I guess it's conceivable I was on somebody's show who asked me a question about it, but I just go on random shows based upon, and in terms of the people we bring in, I rarely bring in commentators on the program. We do that on Friday, and it's just sort of like a specific, it's probably antithetical to the business, any type of business, good business sense, but it just, that's what we do. But I'm curious about like, when they said, don't bite the hand that feeds you, like what context was that?
Well, the context, and again, I could call back, it's been a few months just because my other job, I want to maintain that. And it's not like I was this high up person or anything. I really, like I said, was more of a researcher that kind of just fell into that space. But yeah, so it was another, really mid-sized creator. He's, definitely personable. A lot of these people are real personable. That's of course how they kind of, I don't want to say like get you in, but there's this kind of feeling of like, yeah, we're in this to kind of, quote, expose the truth or the other side, kind of touching on everything you were just saying. Whereas it's really just people going on other people's shows, boosting each other up and
sometimes getting people to work for free.
Oh yeah. Definitely. And then, of course, the projection, like they're grifters, they're liberal shills. And it was like, it got to a point where I was kind of like, what are we, like, this is clearly a little bit of an ecosystem here. So when I just happened to kind of start expressing with this particular group, like, hey, like what Jimmy was saying about Anna, like objectively, you can dislike her, like her, whatever. That's absolutely, that's not okay to say. And the pushback that I received was just like, minuscule compared to what you probably received But I mean, I know it was, so I can't imagine going through all that. But, over time, you just kind of like, okay, it's almost like cult-like behavior. So the "don't buy the hand that feeds you" comment, the context of it was, my criticism, and then it was just like a casual, it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you. And he...
If we pause it for 1 second, we'll circle back to when he says he never even really talked about force the vote, man. Like, he can't even remember if he did. But the one thing I wanted to talk about here is that Sam makes another good point, which is that a lot of times people forget that, this is very financial. This is very business incentivized, right? Gavin and I try and be really open books about that, right? Like, we're clear when we said, hey guys, when we fucking turned our backs on the Jimmy Dore audience, we went from like feeling like we were on like cloud 9, top of the earth, to like being like, fuck, are we going to be able to pay our bills? Are we going to be able to like make it? Like, what is going on? It was a lot of fucking instability in our lives there. And we had the benefit of being like just young guys, like, okay, we can eat ramen for dinner, like, fuck it, like, of course we're not going to change what we believe, like, let's roll the dice. But Gavin and I both have kids, and we've just gone all in on our show, and now you're facing this massive financial loss just from speaking the truth. This is the exact same pressure that gets put on regular journalists or regular media professionals in the system of legacy media that we are constantly critiquing. It is I can either say what I believe or I can put food on the table. And the idea that you would be the head of this kind of, again, like mini mafia, and actively letting everybody know this is how you run your ship, because he'll just favorite anything that like it jerks him off on Twitter all night. That's like what he does, I think, after a couple of fucking Negronis. And then, he and his wife does the same thing. So this is the exact game they're playing, and they know that it's either walk the line and you can come on my show and I'll tell my fucking 1 million sycophantic followers to also support you with the crumbs they have left over after fucking giving the rest to me, or I'll take all that food out of your fucking mouth and fucking destroy you. And all of my little sycophantic followers will try and destroy you, and they'll mess with your head. Can you take that? Are you in a position to take that? It's the same tough decisions that make legacy media bullshit.
100%. And again, it is really just kind of eerie hearing this lady describe exactly what happened to us. Because again, if you guys weren't listening earlier, we were once part of the Jimmy Dore sphere because of the fact that we happened to totally agree with him about force the vote. But as soon as we started even just, very softly criticizing Jimmy and voicing our disagreements with the guy, all of a sudden, we started hearing the exact same thing. Why are you biting the hand that feeds you? This guy made you. You owe your entire career to this guy. Why? How dare you criticize him? I'm like, it is my job to criticize these commentators. And it would literally be access journalism if I stopped criticizing one of them, but kept criticizing everyone else. If I just decided consciously to keep my mouth shut every time I encountered a difference of opinion with Jimmy, because he was friendly to us, but meanwhile, I'm out here trashing everyone else and, intensely disagreeing with everyone else. That's literally access journalism. And I don't know how people, sleep at night, kind of platforming that dishonesty. But and again, despite the fact that we did take a massive financial loss from it, I'm so glad that we did. Like, having principles at the end of the day is so much better than money. And I have to sleep at night. I have to sleep at night. And if I was being dishonest to you guys, and omitting certain opinions that I had for the sake of, my bottom line, then how the fuck could I call myself a communist? You know what I'm saying? How the fuck could I call myself an anti-capitalist if I was running that sort of a sham?
Absolutely. No, I'm clarifying for everybody. I said if we had kids, it would be way harder for us to have made that kind of financial sacrifice for our own peace of mind, because then you're thinking, well, I'll suffer in my own mind, but I at least will have money so that my kids can fucking eat and wear shoes, because we live in that kind of disgusting, depraved country where you might have to actually watch your kids go without if you make the ethical decision. No, Gavin and I, we just have ourselves and our children are our pets. So clarifying there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do not have kids. Luckily, thank God. Can't imagine that in this economy.
Makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it. No.
But thank you so much to Blues Guy. I also really appreciate that $10. If the online left would use their collective platform to push for things they agree on, if anything, we could get stuff done first and debate our differences later. Agreed. And that's kind of how it was more so when we started our show. It wasn't quite as fractured back then. And that was like, what, 2 years ago now? It was definitely fractured and there was definitely lots of drama to talk about, but there was more of that feeling where like, hey, we agree on this ultimate goal. Let's try to fight for this. And then obviously we can debate our differences too. But yeah, it seems like in the post Bernie era, in any sort of unity has just completely dissolved.
Yeah. And I think somebody in the chat mentioned this. For as much shit as Kyle takes for not getting in the mud, that was his whole philosophy. Like, oh, let's just talk about like if I'll go on and debate you, but like the dude doesn't really talk about other commentators too much. On the other hand, you have shows like me and Gavin where we do like to iron out and illustrate the differences in between commentators. But I think that both of those strategies are fine and acceptable as long as at the end of the day you set them all aside. So I perfectly am happy to, if there's another force the vote style, pressure or just a kind of strategy that we're all as a collective, independent left pushing for. I'm happy to join forces with, the Majority Report, with Vosh, with, Mike from PA, anybody that I've like fucking beefed with a little bit on fucking Twitter, Jimmy, you know what I mean? I don't give a fuck about any of that when the rubber hits the road. So I think what it is it's like balancing that. Like, okay, of course it's good to talk about our differences and debate them. Like, I think that that's healthy. And I don't think the left needs to be afraid of that. What I think we need to be afraid of is not discourse, but just like fucking destroying any bridge of like solidarity. Right. And it's like, no, we can talk about all of our differences of opinion until we're blue in the face, and that's fine. But what actually matters is when the rubber's hitting the road. So let's do that together as well. Like, let's walk and chew bubble gum, if you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And thank you so much to Blues Guy. Really appreciate that $10. Thank you also, Alex, for the $4.99. TYT is just MSNBC. They barely endorsed Bernie over Warren. Their co-hosts are not good at all, and they go after anyone that disagrees with them. I mean, you guys know that we're no fans of TYT. We've been pretty, that's been like one of the fucking foundations of our channel as well since the beginning, is roasting TYT, pointing out their hypocrisy, pointing out the fact that they sold out to, big money, et cetera, et cetera. So 100%. And yeah, I remember when Cenk was totally doing the whole thing about, oh, Bernie and Warren, they're both progressives. They're both great options, when clearly Bernie was the superior option. It was never up for debate. So that really did piss me off.
Yeah, and this is not coming as a defense of TYT. Everything that Gavin just said is totally true, and what you said about Bernie over Warren, 100%. Let's just not kid ourselves that MSNBC is still way worse than deciding like barely Bernie over Warren. Like MSNBC is going to be pushing Pete Buttigieg too, and I always just try and remind that to people because look, I'm not making defense of TYT. Guys, I have made how many hours of fucking videos have we made about critiquing TYT? Probably more than any of you that are fucking listening, okay? Unless like, fucking Jimmy Dore is listening. We have been rabidly critical of TYT, but I just worry. We talk about echo chambers and we talk about getting different perspectives and thinking that we're getting a well-rounded perspectives. It's like we are, but you're still within this like bubble of like, okay, within here, we're conceding that the Green New Deal is the way forward. Medicare for all is the way forward. Unions are good, even when Cenk, we know, is himself, not always the biggest friend to unions. That's the position that they're going to take on TYT for the most part, right? And if you compare that directly to how MSNBC presents those issues, it's way different. You're lucky to get like a cop out, like, oh, we need to, strengthen Obamacare and get that ironed out before we bite off any more than we can chew with a new healthcare policy. Or, oh, why don't we, do some more green capitalism instead of a Green New Deal, those kinds of things,
Absolutely. And shout out to you, Elizabeth. Really appreciate the $5. I had one of the largest Twitter accounts during Force the Vote, initially supported everyone and was still somehow attacked. Whole thing sucked. Yeah, I know we were mutuals on Twitter, Elizabeth. Are you still on Twitter? I feel like I haven't seen or heard from you in a while. But I remember when we were mutuals on Twitter, and I really enjoyed your commentary at the time. So yeah, it sounds like you had another similar experience to ours and to this caller on the Majority Report, in that, you were a big fan of Force the Vote. But as soon as you pushed back or disagreed even slightly on anything that Jimmy said or his, audience thought, they kind of just tried to cancel you. So yeah, that's a relatable experience. And yeah, let me know if you're still on Twitter, Elizabeth, because I remember I really enjoyed your tweets.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to you, Elizabeth. And yeah, look, this is the nature of left discourse on the internet too. I mean, on Twitter, it's what does it propel to the top? What gets the most traction? Conflict, right? I think this is something that we all have to figure out how we're gonna avoid that.
Absolutely. Really appreciate the super chat, Elizabeth. Hope you're doing well. And thank you, S. Charles, for the $9.99. Are you familiar with Tina Kotek? She's a progressive candidate running for governor in Oregon. I've only seen her ads. I was curious if you two had any prior knowledge of her. I don't have a ton of prior knowledge. I have heard of her, and I did look her up. And honestly, my main thought when I saw her page is that she looks like Rachel Maddow as like a grandma. Like in like 10 years, that's how Rachel Maddow is going to look. So I don't know much about her politics. She seems pretty progressive, so probably worth voting for. But yeah, I did think that was pretty funny. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Yeah, shout out to you. I this is such a lame thing to say, but when I was doing the quick read through, and again, I don't know much about her, other than what I just did some brief research on. I imagine that she's going to be a perfectly good governor, but I didn't get like too much radical energy from her page. I didn't see a lot of trigger words that I like to look for that get me excited. I'm like, oh, this person's going there to raise hell. Like, I didn't see words like imperialism. I didn't see a lot of words like Medicare for all. I didn't see anything like closing jails and prisons in the state. So again, I don't know. Maybe she's going to be based, but I wouldn't imagine that if you live in Oregon, your life's about to radically change if she gets elected. Like Oregon's already pretty progressive.
Yeah. I do know that Oregon, there's a chance at least the Republican will become governor in Oregon. So I know a lot of people are kind of rallying around Tina to prevent that from happening because Oregon has been blue for so many years now, but I guess that's in jeopardy of changing. Anyway, thank you so much, S. Charles. Really, really appreciate that. Really appreciate the generous $10. Thank you so much, Brian, for the $1.99. Didn't Sam go in bad faith to debate force the vote? Yes, and we'll get more into that in a second, but really appreciate the super chat, man.
Yeah, shout out to you, Brian. And then want to just power through these. Why does Jimmy have such loyal fans? It's the exact same recipe that I was feeding to you. If you tell people you are the only truth teller, every other news source is a lie, you're the only one that can fucking give them the straight shot, they're gonna, you develop a messiah complex between you and your audience, right? It's part of the parasocial relationship that they cultivate. Not giving any other real reasonable viewpoints without viciously tearing them down is how you create those people who think that anybody who isn't with you is against you. And that's the mentality that I think he rides with.
100%. And also, I mean, just to give credit to Jimmy Dore, there's no denying he's a talented and charismatic communicator. The guy's good at what he does. So I think that's also part of it. Even if you take away the narcissistic element of it, I mean, he's a good host of the Jimmy Dore show. Like, there's no denying that he does a good job at what he does. Even when I disagree with him, he's convincing. He's funny, et cetera, et cetera.
Less and less funny now, though, dude. He's getting real fucking cringy on the mic. He's really leaning into the boomer shit.
Oh, there's no denying that, but that definitely sells to a certain demographic.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
And so I mean, yeah, he definitely has the messiah complex thing and the narcissism thing, but let's also be honest about the fact that he is good at what he does, and also that there's usually a grain of truth at least to what he's saying, so that helps as well. So those are some reasons. But thank you so much, Brian. Thank you, Christina, for the $4.99. Do you think Kyle will take you up on your offer to debate? I think Kyle is afraid of debates. Well, Kyle already did take us up on the offer to debate, Christina. Kyle's going to be coming on Monday, actually, to discuss our differences of opinion about AOC and Ukraine funding, because he put out that video that we responded to about AOC being confronted by the protesters, and we pushed back a little bit on his opinion. We agreed with a lot of what he had to say, but we also pushed back pretty hard on some of his talking points. So yeah, he's going to be coming on Monday to discuss. I don't know if it's going to be a debate, but we're going to be, discussing our differences of opinion among other things. So everyone make sure to subscribe for that. I think it's going to be a really good talk.
Yeah, it's always a great time chatting with Kyle. I'm super excited for it. And yeah, we disagree on that, and we're going to talk about that. I'm also interested, as you mentioned, Gavin, to get his opinion on some other things, catch up with the guy in general. But no, yeah, I don't think he's afraid of debates. I think that Kyle just only likes to debate people that he thinks are going to debate him in good faith, that people who he thinks that he can have a good conversation with. Like, he debates Sagar and Marshall all the time. Like, he's gone on Vosh, who you know, when we debated him, was honestly a perfect gentleman. I got to give him credit for that. So, you know, I think he just likes debating people who he knows like are gonna like fucking be civil the whole time. I don't think Kyle likes the screaming match kind of debate at all, and that I kind of relate to, right? Because Gavin will scream way more easily on the podcast than I will, and I'm more of like it's so weird because I feel like I'm on my other job at the bartender, like I'm the first person to scream at you if you like piss me off after I've had like 3 shots of tequila. But like I don't normally drink before we do the show, and so I'm always like, oh god, it's getting fucking tense in here, guys. I guess I better say something too. Like, you know, so
You just gotta start bringing the tequila, man. For the next time we debate, you just gotta take like 5 shots before we start, and then you'll be on fire.
I'll just bring the mezcal bottle up here with me, and whenever I get a little nervous, I'll just start fucking intimidating them by swigging raw from the bottle.
Exactly. So yeah, we're really excited to chat with Kyle about that. And again, we appreciate the fact that people are actually willing to discuss their disagreements with us. Like Glenn Greenwald, as you said earlier, when we disagree with Glenn Greenwald on this show, when we voice our differences of opinion, he'll literally DM us on Twitter and say like, hey guys, and then he'll try to explain where he's coming from, and then he'll offer oftentimes to actually hash it out live on air, like, hey, we got some beef, let's hash it out, let's talk about it. I don't like, why can't everyone just be like that? It's so weird that like some people are just so much more mature when it comes to expressing and discussing their disagreements than other people. But yeah, I've always really appreciated the fact that Glenn, who's also been a longtime fan of our show and supporter of our show, he doesn't just get triggered when we disagree with him. He doesn't just like our show because he wants to hear us, you know, blow smoke up his ass and fucking talk about how awesome he is. He likes our show because he actually can engage with our opinions, and he actually values what we have to say. Again, it's not just this masturbatory, like, I want to hear myself get jerked off for 2 hours kind of a thing. And I really, really respect Glenn for that. So, and same with Kyle. So anyway, thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much, Das Fleisch, for the super generous super chat. Back when dislikes were visible, Jimmy validated his opinion based on the dislike ratio on Kyle's video response. It's easy to get the dislikes on a video when you have a zealot army behind you. Yeah, that's true. And I think you can still technically see the dislike ratio if you install like an extension on your browser to see it. So he might still do that for all we know. But thank you so much, Das Fleisch.
Oh yeah, you can get around that really, really easily. Fortunately for my mental health, I've just never looked into it. So whenever we piss off our audience and get a lot of dislikes, I'm just like, hey, we're getting more views than normal. This is based. But you know, that's how I curate my reality.
Exactly. It's so stupid that they got rid of the dislike button, by the way. Like even when our videos get mass disliked, people should still be able to see that shit. Like I don't want it to be hidden. Anyway, thank you so much, Das Fleisch. Really, really appreciate that. Very generous super chat. And also I noticed that Elizabeth commented also that her account got suspended. No reason given. That's crazy. Elizabeth, that's wild. Have you started a new one, or are you just I mean, you're probably better off honestly off Twitter. Sometimes I wish I could just delete my Twitter account and never look back, but unfortunately that's not the reality that I live in. I got to keep it around for the Vanguard. But you know, you're probably better off if you never got back on. Anyway, let us know, Elizabeth. Thank you so much. And thank you, Audie. Always appreciate seeing you in the chat, Audie. Thank you so much for the $5. Just tuning in, nothing to add yet, just contributing. We really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, shout out to you, Audie. Always great to see you in the chat. Really appreciate your support.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. And thank you, Amin, for the $4.99. I'm a Vanguard, Gray Zone, Dore, Hinkle, JG, RBN, Russell B, Sabby Sab supporter. Your audience has the capacity to listen to multiple sources. Damn right they do, man. I have no doubt about that. I think that our audience, I mean, clearly, if you're still a member of the Vanguard audience, then you have the capacity to listen to multiple sources, because we're not afraid to push back on anyone and everyone. We criticize everyone from Sam Seder to Jimmy Dore and everyone in between. And I think that we've cultivated an audience, luckily, of people that appreciate that, right? That actually want to hear our honest opinion on the whole spectrum of leftist thought. Some people just want to live in an echo chamber, but clearly a lot of our audience members, like you, I mean, don't want to live in an echo chamber, which is why you tune into us, because you actually know you're going to hear what we honestly think about things. And we're not interested in doing access journalism. But thank you so much. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to you. I mean, we love some variety, and it looks like you do too. So shout out to you. We always appreciate that. And I love that little corgi that's in your picture right there. That's so cute.
Yeah, that is super adorable. Thank you so much, Amin. And thank you also, Brian, for the $4.99. Jank attacked Republicans on Twitter for criticizing socialism, even though he's debated Hassan, defending capitalism several times. We reacted to that at the time, actually. I remember when we reacted to him debating Hassan about capitalism versus socialism. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I think that Jenk would say that he believes in socialism with a lot of elements of capitalism. To be like, one system is not right or the other. You know, the capital makes value too. Blah blah. Blah. But like, yeah, it is a little egg on your face when you're a union busting business owner with probably $1 million plus in your bank account. You know, to go on and attack Republicans for criticizing socialism when you have criticized your own nephew for being too far to the left and not understanding that the value that the owner creates, which is nothing. And I thought that Hassan actually dragged the shit out of Jenk in that debate. People should go check that out if you you know, aren't super familiar with Hassan, or you don't understand why some people give him like leftist props when, you know, he's mostly just an entertainment Twitch guy. It's because he actually does sometimes make some really based arguments about communism. And you know, we got to take our W's of representation where we can get them, you know, as the left.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate that. And yeah, that was a great debate. Thank you also so much, Jay Black, for that $20. That's super generous of you, Jay. Thank you so much. The most important thing to debate with Kyle about is his hatred of fall, a cancel-worthy offense. 100% agree with you, Jay. We might have to get into that too when we chat with Kyle on Monday, because I am just so far on the opposite side of Kyle when it comes to his opinion on the fall season. Kyle notoriously hates fall. Versus Zach and I are like the biggest champions of fall of all time. It's easily my favorite season. I literally wish that October and September went on for like 6 months. But thank you so much, Jay. We really appreciate the generosity.
Yeah, Vanguard destroys Kyle Kalinske over worst take ever. I remember when we made that video, and that was really fun. So yeah, shout out to you, Jay, a longtime Vanguard listener. If you're remembering back last year in the fall. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. Really, really appreciate that, man. And thank you also, Gabe, for the $4.99. And an interesting thing you should ask Kyle is, which side of the aisle would he have an easier time reconciling with, the TYT side or the JD side? That would be interesting. We did ask him on the last time we had Kyle on about whether he would ever work together with TYT or with Jimmy Dore if the time came. And he said, absolutely. You know, just like us, he's willing to put all the beef aside if it means working towards a common goal. But I think the answer to this question, Gabe, would just be, it depends on what the goal is that they're working towards. Like, for example, Jimmy Dore didn't even support Bernie Sanders in 2020. So if Bernie runs again, then probably TYT would be easier to reconcile with. But in the event of another force the vote style thing, well, then probably Jimmy, because TYT didn't support force the vote. So, you know, it just kind of depends on what they're reconciling over and what the common goal in mind is.
Oh yeah, 100%. Honestly, I don't really see reconciliation on the horizon on any personal level between these people, just because, like, and not from Kyle, man. Kyle seems perfectly willing to bury the hatchet and move on, but it just seems like there's still a large level of vitriol. Like, not to get super into the TMZ guard, but we had Corin on, and he was talking about like how crazy Jimmy Dore was behaving when they were just trying, like, they were supposed to eat, you know, anyway, I don't know, eat dinner together, and then they couldn't, and so he like freaked out and sent out like, that's deranged. I'm sorry. That's crazy behavior. Gavin's like my best friend, and I wouldn't send him 3 pages if he was like, sorry, fuck, bro, I can't get dinner tonight. My flight is like changing. I'd be like, oh, zoinks, like that. Fuck, bro. It would have been cool to fucking get dinner. But like, anyway, so I just imagine that the bridge is pretty thoroughly burned, and that, you know, none of them are going to be extending the olive branch unless something like really tangibly political is on the line. And then it's more like a, you know, pretend everything's cool for 3 hours while we organize and then don't talk to each other again.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much, Gabe. Really appreciate that, man. And we're about to get back to the video, guys. Just a few more super chats. Thank you, Mike H, for the $2. I'm a socked in, but I still support you guys. No problem, bro. We accept viewers and support from all sorts of ideological disposition. You know, you don't have to say I'm this, I'm that. It's all good, bro. You're welcome here. Yeah, this is a safe space for your opinion.
Yeah, I'm a shit lib, and I'm welcome here. So.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you, M. Johnson, for the $4.99. Ask when he thinks it's a good time to pivot to a ceasefire in Ukraine. That's definitely an interesting question. We'll definitely be getting into that with him on Monday.
Absolutely, as Gavin has started to say as of recent. Yeah, are we all caught the... Oh, one more from Audie the Bug Catcher. Can never forget you, Audie. Shout out to you. It's awesome you're having Kyle on next Monday. He's one of my faves. It has been years since I've heard his take on veganism. Would love to see you guys briefly cover it with him if possible. You know what? Shout out to you, Audie. Just for you, I'm going to catch Kyle with a, hey, bro, how do you feel about veganism? I promise. That's on me. I'm going to get him for you.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about bringing that up too. So yeah, we can definitely ask him his opinion on that. Adi, we really appreciate the super chat and look forward to seeing you in our chat when we're talking to Kyle on Monday. But yeah, let's keep watching this, guys.
Months later realized like, oh shit, like she didn't actually forget that comment. And it's like, no, I still want to know, what does that mean? Who's feeding me? Jimmy Dore was never feeding me.
Yeah.
Never said
Well,
ever.
Well, Jordan, I am curious too about, because the thing that tipped me off when I was getting started, and I was probably in not the same position as you, but I started as an intern making very little money, and then I was a contractor for a long period of time. So I was precarious and much at the whims of, like, I think, my boss at the time. And I kind of, with Jimmy specifically and with this whole crowd, I kind of ignored a lot of what I felt was like misogynistic and sexist talk because I just wanted to plow ahead. And I think that was like the thing that tipped me off more than anything, because it was also really intermixed with the Hillary Clinton coverage at the time. And I felt like my approach to covering Hillary Clinton and my feelings about her were a little bit different in tone and in feel than, say, what Jimmy and others were putting out there in this very specific space where, I feel like we're kind of talking about the same area.
Definitely. No, that definitely relates to a lot of that. And just like the observations, you're like, okay, we're not really that aligned here. And it just, to kind of close out, and like, maybe I will email you guys just some more interesting points.
Yeah, please.
I want to look into. Yeah, I definitely will. But just to close out, just following up with the Jimmy and the Tulsi thing for another day. But Jimmy's recent video that he did on Biden lying about abortion, for whatever reason, again, it's like, I know this man's videos are going to annoy me, so I rarely watch them. But that one I had to. And to hear this guy just get on there talking about how, Biden and the Democrats are lying about abortion, it's not going to be a national ban. And it's like, you can't even do the due diligence on that of just mentioning the Lindsey Graham aspect. Again, this isn't news to anybody in the audience, nor, not even news to me, but it's just remarkable. And I wonder when this grift or this jig, whatever it is, will finally run its course. It's so obvious.
He's already basically said, like, you should vote for Republican to harm reduction because they're better at foreign policy. So, like, it's about running
and
its course.
COVID.
And we should be clear, well, first off, it will not. It will not run its course. The only discernible change will be what has happened to Tulsi, which is that, like, she is done trolling for people on the left. That part of her career is over. The same thing that has happened in many respects with Greenwald, same thing that happened with Dave Rubin. This is the trajectory. And I anticipate that Jimmy will follow that same trajectory, frankly, because they are driven by a desire for celebrity. They're driven by a desire for money. I think there are probably other complicating factors in some of these people's lives, frankly, that not just in money in terms of, but also, like, there's other, let's say, external factors that implicate their dispositions at times. And they cannot go back, because at one point, there will be no, like, sort of middle ground thing. Like, well, I'm not totally against the vaccine, but I'm skeptical. There'll be no middle ground there. I mean, you think about the number of times that the word drones has come out of Jimmy Dore's mouth, drone attacks. And I can assure you that the number of times that word has been uttered over the past 2 years is, somewhere hovering around nil in the context of what Joe Biden has done, because Joe Biden has very quietly, like, just like not complete.
Also, thank you so much, Brian, for the $4.99. Emma is clearly a Hillary apologist, attacking anyone who opposed her as a sexist. Yeah, I don't know if I'd call her a Hillary apologist, but I do think that was a little bit weird how she kind of implied that people that were, criticizing Hillary a lot were doing it for sexist reasons. Like, I don't really think that's true. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there that do just hate Hillary Clinton because she's a woman and they don't really care about anything else. But like the kind of people like Jimmy Dore and the kind of people like, Kyle Kulinski or Mike Figueredo, who kind of came up in the 2016 era of Bernie versus Hillary, to kind of suggest that like those people were just attacking Hillary because she's a woman. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's a lot of very valid reasons to hate Hillary Clinton that have nothing to do with her vagina.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that Hillary Clinton has a bunch of people who hate her because she's a woman, but those people were all voting for Donald Trump anyway in that election, right? Like they are on the right wingers. Like I can tell you a bunch of right wingers that have said really sexist shit about Hillary Clinton, right? And obviously there have been some lefties that have made some jokes, but like if you just call Hillary Clinton like an evil, like conniving, like fucking, wicked witch or whatever, like, okay, I guess those are like gendered terms, but I don't think that makes you like a misogynist, right? Those were all things that were on our mind. And I'll tell you what, the most effective play that they had, which ended up wedging voters away, was doing exactly what Emma did, which was trying to say, oh, if you supported Bernie and now you don't support Hillary, it's because you're a sexist. And so a lot of people were just like, fuck you, like I'm not going to support Hillary anyway, like you're not giving me a single tangible reason to support her. So again, it's just that tired old thing that's like an excuse for why she lost is just because men are bad.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Brian. Really appreciate that. And thank you also, Brent, for the $5. You guys stopped doing call-in right after Kyle Kulinski's softball interview. Are you afraid of talking to people who agree with Jimmy Dore? What? No. Okay, first of all, that wasn't a softball interview. It was a conversation we had the first time we ever met Kyle. If you want to see a non-softball, I guess we're going to be having him on again on Monday to actually discuss some of our disagreements. Again, I don't know if you caught that earlier, but we're going to be having on Kyle to talk about our differences of opinion as far as AOC and Ukraine goes. But as far as call-in goes, no, we stopped doing our call-in because they stopped paying us. When we originally got contracted by call-in to do a show there, they were paying us pretty handsomely, I will say. And then time came where they called us and said, hey guys, we're having to reel back some of our creators and trying to rein in the money, and we're now only going to be able to pay you like $15 an episode. And we said, all right, well, that's just not worth our time anymore. We might as well just do our show on YouTube where we can make more money that way. So that's why we stopped doing call-in. It has nothing to do with talking to people who agree with Jimmy Dore.
No, Gavin, I think Brent's big enough to understand this. We actually were terrified about what people were going to say and push back to us in this one episode after we talked to Kyle Kulinski. So instead of paying our rent with ease every month, we thought, fuck it, let's just cast it all away because we're shit scared to talk to people who like Jimmy Dore. When I'd like to remind everybody, we were the first people that called out Jimmy Dore to his face for supporting the People's Party in the face of all of their fucking controversy. Like, I mean, come on, Brent, that's a little ridiculous. I would much rather. I did not love Colin, I'm gonna be honest, but I was not gonna quit if they were gonna keep paying us.
Yeah. Also, the app was super annoying. It would always glitch out, and like we couldn't hear people. It was always a fucking nightmare. But thank you so much, Brent. I remember you used to call into our show, and you would always say the same goddamn fucking thing every single time. But yeah, I think we mostly got the gist of this clip. They kind of ramble on a little bit more about how, Jimmy Dore talks too much about this and Jimmy Dore doesn't talk enough about that, et cetera, et cetera. But basically the meat of the discussion we reacted to. And now it's time to check out what Briahna Joy Gray said, because as you guys remember, there was this big thread over here about how everything they said was vapid and whatever the fuck. They said they lack self-awareness. Everything in this video applies to them. You think they're hearing different opinions, confirming each other's biases, et cetera, et cetera. Compton J then goes on to say Jimmy Dore will follow in the same footsteps as Tulsi Gabbard because they are driven by a desire for celebrity, money, and other external factors. Think about the number of times. Okay, so yeah, they're just quoting the interview, I guess. Anyway, then Briahna Joy Gray quote tweeted this and said, she also quoted Sam, I don't know if I ever went on anyone's show ever to talk about Force the Vote. And then she points out that, well, she was actually happy to host Sam on the Bad Faith podcast in an interview that was quite memorable. And she links to it here. And obviously we remember that because we reacted to it at the time. We did a breakdown of that video. And I thought that Briahna Joy Gray did a really, really good job kind of exposing some of the areas of Sam's ignorance as far as the force the vote strategy and some of the things he was implying would happen if the squad members forced the vote. For example, Kevin McCarthy, Republican, becoming Speaker of the House, which was never going to happen. So yeah, that was a great debate. We reacted to it at the time, and Briahna is correct to point out that in fact Sam did go on her show to talk about force the vote.
And not just that, for like 3 hours. In fact, I remember listening to a clip with Briahna the other day where she said that she actually first heard about Force the Vote from her friend, Sam Seder. So I don't know where that story is getting mixed up, but I know I watched Sam Seder go on Bad Faith for 3 hours in a debate between Brie that was moderated by Virgil, Texas, RIP. And the missing man. Anyway, moderated by he who will not be named. And then it was lasted really long time. And then Sam gaslit the shit out of Briahna Joy Gray on Twitter and said that he was yelled at for 3 hours. And everybody was like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? This is like some pretty ugly racism where I'm smelling here, like what you got in one like very friendly and professional debate with a black woman, and now you got to come out here and like piss and moan about how you were like admonished and yelled at. This was a whole dialogue that he's just erasing from the Twitter timeline, and Gavin and I aren't here for it. This is, if there's one thing we're around for, it's to remember Twitter beefs and catalog them. It's like, hey man, I can go back to the exact fucking day in my YouTube studio where we fucking put this up, and it will tell me at what time I reacted to this. I'll look at the anyway. So yeah, pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, Briahna is correct to point that out. I don't know if Sam just kind of forgot about that in the moment, or if he was like intentionally omitting that conversation. I doubt he was intentionally omitting it. But yeah, he absolutely did go on Bad Faith. They did a long discussion, a really long, in-depth debate about that. So yeah, super interesting stuff. Briahna doesn't really comment on the substance of that clip. She doesn't really comment on whether or not the Jimmy Dore sphere echo chamber is a thing or not, which it absolutely is. But she is right to point this out. Yeah, so I guess I don't know what else to say about it, but that
was a good little segment, man. We did great on that. I want to shout out Nobody Look. I think that's the next super chat we have to get to, right?
There's one more before.
Oh, sorry. Emma brags about working for nothing as an intern, ignoring the fact that internships often blocks working class people from career opportunities. Yeah, just use a personal anecdote. Gavin and I, we have another roommate, Felisa. She's a really good reporter locally. I remember when she was working for The Nation as an intern in like downtown Manhattan, and she had to commute 50 minutes every single day to like way the fuck out in like Bushwick, I think was where she was at the time. And she was getting paid $15 an hour and not paid during lunch. Okay. And you're expected to live in the most expensive city in the world. Nobody can afford to do that, right? It's impossible. And they work you so much, and you have to work on the weekends to go do like actual field reporting, which is when you get published. Like, and then you get to actually get rewarded by having something in your, resume that says I was published here, or I did this, or whatever, right? So you can't have a second job. And what does that do? It makes sure that only fucking rich kids, as you're pointing out, get to live and do that, right? And that's 100% how New York City is, and that's how it stays insulated.
Yeah, internships are crazy fucked. It's really just a crazy way to exploit people's labor. And a big problem too with internships that no one talks enough about is how universities and colleges actually like fuel this kind of like industry of exploitation through internships, because for a lot of degrees to get, whether it's a film degree or a culinary degree, you have to take an internship for like 6 months in order to obtain your degree. That happened with me. I had to get an internship as a editor at a wedding video company. I used to edit wedding videos. I did that for like 6 months. I was an intern for 6 months, and then eventually they brought me on as a paid contractor right before COVID hit, and then they fired me because of COVID. They laid me off. But the point is that company got about 6 months of free labor out of me. And I made a lot of fucking wedding video guys. I edited the shit out of those wedding videos, and that was all basically free labor. Again, this also happens in a lot of other departments as well, like culinary. Like if you want to get a culinary degree, you basically have to work at a restaurant for like 6 months for free as an intern or an apprentice. So basically colleges and universities are just funneling free labor into these sectors or industries, and it's totally exploitative. It's 100% exploitative. I mean, if you're getting paid like $3 an hour or something, that's crazy. That's absolute insanity. So yeah, people need to talk more about that. And thank you so much for the super chat. Nobody look, really appreciate that. Also, thank you, Brian. Really appreciate the $4.99 once again, Brian. I hope Kyle will address why he thinks that Ukraine military aid should take priority over domestic needs. We could use those billions here at home. Well, we're going to get into that and more with Kyle on Monday. Like I said, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss that interview with Kyle, because yeah, we're going to be talking about that exact subject matter.
Yep, 100%. Shout out to you, Brian. Though, always great to see you in the chat. You always add such thoughtful contributions to the conversation. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Carolina Boy. Speaking of our call-in show, we used to really enjoy chatting with you, Carolina Boy. Really appreciate the $4.99. Do you think the Jimmy Dore sphere would give credit if Biden decriminalized weed? They seem to be becoming just reflexively anti-neoliberal. Yeah, hopefully. I mean, if he does decriminalize weed, then we'll definitely give him credit for that. Again, even though it's not like to give someone credit is not to say you're a fan of them. Like if Donald Trump had decriminalized weed, I would have given him credit for it. That doesn't mean that I like Donald Trump. So yeah, hopefully they would. I don't know though, man. What do you think, Zach?
Oh, okay. This is how they would play it. I just know this is how they would play it. They would say, stoner dude Biden legalizes pot for clout after letting fucking thousands and thousands and thousands of people languish in prison since the 1994 crime bill. And it's like, okay, so like they're not going to shit on pot, but they're not going to come out and be like, oh yeah, Biden's based. And honestly, that's probably what I'm going to say too. So
yeah, that is accurate. That is accurate. I mean, there is only so much credit you can give Biden for reversing something that he's effectively did in the first place. Not that he was the one that made weed illegal, but like after imprisoning all of these people for drug offenses, and then we're now supposed to turn around and give you credit for, decriminalizing weed, which again, I still would do, but it does make it a bit more of a tough pill to swallow to give Biden credit for just about anything, but especially that. So you can't really blame them for framing it like that, I guess, but yeah, I do agree with you, Carolina Boy, and really appreciate the $4.99. Also, thank you so much, Adi. Really appreciate the $10. 8 years ago, I built about 25% of a software that was just acquired for $150 million as an intern, and I had no clue then. Internships are theft. Holy fuck, man. So that software that you developed 25% of, I'm guessing you didn't see any profit from. They didn't, pay you for that, even though you built it. That's absolutely insane, man. That is crazy. Literally stolen theft. I mean, theft. What's the word? Stolen labor, stolen whatever the fuck.
Legalize stolen labor like everything else in this country. They'll be like, oh, well, when you signed the document that you were employed by them for, zero compensation, but experience, they were entitled to all of your intellectual property developed on their premises or whatever the fuck. So legally, they're probably protected, even though it's fucking bullshit. So yeah, that's crazy, Adi. Thanks for sharing that.
And I've heard stories that are similar to this too, where it's like a young intern kind of built or designed something that ended up becoming a massive commodity, and they don't get paid for it. So yeah, truly crazy. Internships are literally theft. Thanks for sharing your experience with that, Adi. That's a really, really good illustration of what we were talking about. So really appreciate the comment, man. And thank you also, Brian, once again. Kyle has consistently attacked the U.S. MIC, but on Ukraine, he doesn't seem concerned about enriching weapons manufacturers with military aid. Like I said, we're going to chat with him about that on Monday, and hopefully get to the bottom of our disagreement. Hopefully, change his mind a little bit, depending on how much we disagree. But yeah, really appreciate it, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also want to get to the bottom of his concerns about that. So yeah, we're gonna talk a lot about this. It's gonna be a really good discussion. I'm super excited to have it. So yeah, make sure you tune in for that, Brian.
Yeah, again, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can see us discuss this issue with Kyle on Monday. Really excited to break it down together and hash out our disagreements. But thank you so much, Brian. Really, really appreciate that. And thank you once again for the $1.99, and thanks for the praise, gentlemen. Well, we really appreciate you, Brian. Thank you so much for your comments. We always really appreciate hearing what you have to say and, responding to your questions or thoughts on the issues. So really appreciate you, engaging with us in these discussions. We always like hearing from you.
Yeah, shout out to you, Brian. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate everybody that super chatted so far today. Had an awesome little segment here breaking this down. Gone for an hour and 20 minutes talking about this beef here. Is there anything that you wanted to quickly shout out, Gavin, before I skedaddle? Obviously, you can keep fucking going for as long as you need to. Shout out to you, Hysteric Raider. Exploited labor is how we got the Riddler in the 1990s Batman cartoon, if I remember correctly. Well, that's based. In which case, the Riddler might be the best villain. I really liked Paul Dano as the Riddler in the most recent one too. But I know nothing about the actual comics.
Yeah, I was actually just rewatching the new Batman yesterday, and yeah, I love Paul Dano's Riddler in that movie. Such a great movie. I absolutely adore the new Batman film. So good. But thank you, really appreciate that, Hysteric Raider. Thank you so much. Thank you also, Mike H. Supporting Ukraine is the left wing position. Yeah, we're gonna. Well, I think you can support Ukraine without supporting America's policy of sending billions and billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine. I think that's a little bit of a lack of nuance the way you phrase it that way, Mike. But again, we're going to be talking about that with Kyle on Monday. So make sure to hit that subscribe and tune in for that. So really appreciate everyone tuning in today. I really appreciate all the super chats. We are going to get out of here because we are basically done. Discussing this story. There's not really much else to say about this. But yeah, really appreciate you all tuning in. Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Adi. You are the MVP of today's live stream. Thank you so much, Adi. Here comes another vegan meal. Great show, and really looking forward to the debate with Kyle. Well, thank you so much for the contribution, as always, Adi. We'll absolutely get some great. I'm going to go back to Blue Nile and get some more of that dank Meezer Watt. Thank you so much, Adi. I can't even express how grateful we are to have you in our community.
Yeah, shout out to you, Adi. I have to fly out to Boston tomorrow, so I will get some vegan plain food just for you. Shout out to you. Really appreciate that. And yeah, one final note about Paul Dano. Did you know he didn't even want to be in Prisoners? But he said he had a crush on Roger Deakins or whatever, the cinematographer. And he was like, oh, I'll do it just because he's fucking filming it. I was like, oh, that's hilarious. Anyway, I got to get the fuck out of here. Shout out to everybody. It was an amazing live stream. Shout out to everybody in the chat community. Make sure you hit that like button, hit that notification bell. We might be live tomorrow. Who knows?
Yeah, seriously. Thank you so much, Adi. And you can head out whenever, Zach. I'll wrap things up. But yeah, we really, really genuinely appreciate you, Adi. Thank you so much for the support. And as always, we do like to end our show with a big shout out to our patron community. Huge shout out to you. Also, Adi is one of our super Vanguardians, so we really appreciate that support as well. And Adi says, Zach, let's hang out in Boston. I think he's gonna be chilling with his sister, so maybe I think he's only gonna be there for a couple times. I don't know if he'll have a couple days rather. I don't know if he'll have the time, but I'll definitely let him know you said that, Adi. But yeah, thank you so much to our patron community. Really appreciate the support, guys. If you enjoy our show, if you like tuning in, and if you enjoy and agree with our perspective, Patreon is a really good way to support the work we do. We're also working on another documentary film, which is going to be coming out within the next couple months, maybe within the month. So super excited about that. And really appreciate everyone tuning in today. If you haven't already, also make sure to hit that like button. It's another great way to support the show 100% for free. But yeah, we do like to start and end all of our lives with a big old shout out to the patrons for keeping us afloat, for making the show possible. We genuinely appreciate your guys' support. And the link is in the description below if you would like to join our patron community and help the show. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. This was an awesome show. Really like breaking down this little beef between Sam, Jimmy, and Briahna. And we'll be back soon. Thanks everyone for tuning in today.